Welcome to Night Shadows. I'm Stuart Best, where the paranormal is normal, where that which you thought you knew, you didn't, and where the future can be known if you know exactly where to look.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thanks for tuning in. This North Korean situation is getting more and more dire all the time, I guess. And we've got Larry on his mountaintop watching the world, and especially North Korea. Hi, Larry. How you doing?
Hey, Stuart. Just sitting up here with a big old pair of binoculars.
Boy, this thing, it seems from some of the rhetoric that they're going to have to do something. That Kimmy appears to be, I think it's a bait deal myself. I think he's trying to bait Trump into an attack, or it's going to be a bait and switch. Give me lots of money, and we'll negotiate, and I won't launch some nukes on new, cities of the United States. What do you think?
Well, it's certainly becoming more telling. I was listening to some intel people today and yesterday evening after the North Korean launched their ICBM, and that wasn't a surprise, by the way, because I had just posted hours before that Japan and South Korea had been watching a flurry of activity at a missile launch site, and then also, you remember, Japan had picked up some kind of secret messaging back and forth, by radio. And so we knew that something was about to occur, but then when it did, I think America was shocked because Trump, his coming out to speak on it was delayed. And when he did, he had Mattis with him, and Mattis indicated that more or less out of time, because of the fact that it's not whether they can hit the West Coast anymore or Alaska. It's, according to Mattis, they really could hit anywhere in the U.S. they wanted to, and maybe even in the world. So it's rather telling, and of course, this seems to be ramping up. In the intel that I started to talk about, they were saying that they believed that this was a set-up deal, that Kim knew exactly what he was doing, and he knew that this would cause the U.S. to have to respond, and that Kim was already a step ahead with a response of his own if the U.S. did respond. So this is a deadly game that's being played here.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we also, the intelligence communities keep saying, oh, we just had no idea that they were that far along, and now within a year they already got it. They've gotten it from Russia. They've gotten it from China. They've been fed these things. And to me, it all plays out to be part of the Psalm 2 war scenario where nobody's exempt, including Trump and including Obama and all the rest of them. It looks to me like they're kind of operating from a script. And as to when this thing could break loose, I guess what would we tell everybody? Anytime. I mean, Kim could strike anytime. So couldn't Trump.
So
go ahead.
I was just going to mention what's interesting is the fact that Hawaii has finally taken this really seriously, and they have put up the old-time Cold War sirens, and
really?
giving their people some announcement of some kind for them to take cover. So they are really taking this very, very seriously. And, of course, South Korea, they're in the same boat along with Japan, and this missile that was recently fired went extremely high, and they said 10 times the height of the space station, and then came down in Japanese waters. So, not only is the U.S. in trouble, so to speak, but our allies are too. And with all the promises we've made, this is really going to put Trump in a position to have to act some way or the other.
Yeah, because he's kind of boxed himself in with his rhetoric. And here's a headline: U.S. heading to war with North Korea. Things don't change. Senator Graham. No North Korea missile launch might force U.S. into negotiations. This comes from Sputnik, which is an interesting take. North Korea has carried out a test of its Hwasong-15 intercontinental ballistic missile, boasting that the weapon can reach anywhere inside the United States. Speaking to Sputnik about the implications of the test, Carnegie Endowment for International Peace Fellows said that North Korea's achievement may very well force Washington into negotiations. This could be considered then a shakedown, could it not?
Well,
at
it's
this
good.
point,
The shakedown has been going on for, I guess you could say the Clinton term, the Bush terms, and the Obama terms, and here we are again. This is how he works. And it's odd that Tillerson is still coming out, even after this latest missile launch, saying that they are still open to dialogue. Can you imagine?
Well, Trump said it doesn't do any good to talk to him, which, of course, it doesn't. But this is going to get very, very interesting because of the military machine that Trump has surrounded himself with, which almost all of them are deep state personnel. So they're probably going to play this by the Illuminati numbers game that they always play, and it'll be done when the timing is absolutely right. Has Kim said any more about nuclear testing at all? I think he's kind of vowed to keep going.
Yeah, he's made the remarks, but nobody's really seen that activity in play right now.
And Iran, has Iran said anything about this at all?
Well, the latest, and I found it rather telling, that the last 2 or 3 days, most of Iran has been covered up with them moving some of their warships to South America and bringing it up in the Gulf of Mexico, which is really interesting. And I was talking to Augusto the other day, and he said he felt like that probably Iran had linked up with Venezuela and Cuba to begin this type of Southern Hemisphere troubles.
What kind of weapons or what kind of ships is Iran bringing to the Gulf?
Warships. They're some of their fleet.
Do they have missiles on them?
Well, of course. Iran doesn't turn over any card without missiles on them.
So this is kind of a checkmate. Because then we're surrounded. Well, we've got the Russians who have already warned Trump not to go ahead and do this. China, although Trump evidently feels China's his buddy, definitely is not our buddy. In fact, it was a U.S. admiral, I can't think of his name, maybe you remember him, but he said that China was gearing up for war with the United States. Their whole military was geared for war with the United States. So I just can't imagine Trump feels that this fellow is on his side, and the same goes with Putin. And, of course, we know from the Bible that Putin, most likely, and the allies, probably including China, Iran, whatnot, encircle the United States and take us out. I believe that comes at the Ezekiel 38, beginning of that war, that America is brought down. And it seems with this triad that's developing between Putin, Turkey, and Iran, plus all their allies, against Israel, Saudi Arabia, and the United States, it seems to me we're shaping up for that Ezekiel war. and the Isaiah 17 war could break out any time. What's the latest out of Israel concerning troop movements or anything like that?
Well, there's not a lot of data since they've deployed across the country. The IDF is preparing for a three-front war. In other words, they're expecting it from all the proxies of Iran just any time now. They've got threats coming from all directions. Hamas in Gaza, and then, of course, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and the Syrians, and, of course, Syria now is full of Iranians at the same time, right on the Golan border. And, you just got troubles in every direction. And so they're ready for a three-front war. Netanyahu, and it's very interesting, is, the first report came out that Netanyahu had sent a threat against Syria through Putin to Assad. But yesterday, Debka reported that it's even closer than that. It says Russian spymaster was in Jerusalem as an emissary from Putin to Israel and received the warning to Assad personally. Sergei Navritskin, head of Russia's SUR, Foreign Intelligence Service, was there on if you would call it that, an unannounced visit, if you believe that. And so anyway, Netanyahu now has threatened to attack Syria. Of course, at the same time, Stuart, we realize that Salman, who is taking a lot of authority in Saudi Arabia, has made some deals apparently with Trump and Netanyahu to pretty much finance an Israeli attack on Lebanon and Syria.
Yeah, they're maneuvering fairly quickly, which leads me to believe there's a very good possibility that Daniel 8 is right around the corner, because if you read Daniel 8, the first part, it more or less indicates that this attack that Iran makes on all its neighbors is launched without any warning whatsoever, just bang. And that the United States gets involved in that, according to some Israeli rabbis who have studied that particular scripture, and they claim that the he-goat is in fact the United States. And it kind of sounds like it's a aerial battle more than anything, but it does kind of take down Iran. So that might be the first thing, but you just don't know. I mean, Israel could hit Damascus anytime, particularly if they're going to strike Lebanon, which is really what? An Iranian proxy. It's pretty much is Syria.
Yeah, it's very interesting in Lebanon because Harari, who was the prime minister of Lebanon, he's against, he actually is close to Saudi Arabia and was against Hezbollah. Now, Hezbollah has almost, and their Iranian proxies, they've almost taken over completely Lebanon. And remember, Harari had to flee after the Iranians tried to assassinate him in Beirut. He had to flee to Saudi Arabia and meet with Salman, who sent him to France. And this is why Saudi Arabia is about to, I believe, support an Israeli attack, on Hezbollah forces inside Lebanon. And, of course, that'll also include Syria, which will also include the Iranians. So you've got Iranian. Matter of fact, we didn't realize it, but the latest report is that Soleimani, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard general, has tens of thousands of troops in Syria right now, and a lot of them are down towards the Golan border.
So, in essence, Israel's already pretty much surrounded.
Oh, yeah.
So this thing can break out at any time. Of course, Putin, did say anything breaks out, we can be down there in a couple of hours. So it looks like we are framing up for the Ezekiel 38-39 war. And the way I read Ezekiel 38-39 is kind of, I think they're missing the point. I'm sure you've read it, but it says that Gog in the land of Magog, they come down to the mountains of Israel. Then it says they think an evil thought. I will go up to the land of unwalled villages, to those that are at rest, to those who have gotten rich in cattle and goods, and I'm going to go up there and take a spoil. Well, if they're already on the mountains of Israel, they've already invaded, this has got to be a reference to another attack. And I believe that attack is the United States that they're talking about there, because we likewise have gotten rich with cattle and goods. We dwell without gates and walls, etc., etc., etc. If you go into Jeremiah and you look at who launches all that, it comes out of the Soviet Union, or the former Soviet Union. Isaiah would verify that. So I think if we see the Isaiah 17 war or the North Korean strike, which maybe be the first domino that falls, and then the whole world basically is launching missiles at everybody else, and it just deteriorates into a tragic World War III. What do you think?
Well, it's very interesting. Something that I also found out today, True News was running a report, says that China is sending 2 special forces units to Syria to fight alongside of Assad forces, and that there's an additional report says Assad has allowed China to move 5,000 troops as well as Chinese aircraft and naval equipment into the territory. So you are really filling up Syria. I mean, we've got everybody's military there almost now.
How many ships do we have over there? I mean, most of them are sitting off the Korean peninsula there. Do we have anything over in the Middle East? I'm sure we must.
The latest I heard, and that's been a month ago or more, was we had one carrier group over in the Mediterranean, I believe, and I really hadn't heard much about it lately. But I do know that Israel is not only, they've got the Iron Dome missile system forces for defense, and they've now loaded ships with Iron Dome, and they put them to sea. So they have their defenses deployed even in the Mediterranean now, the Iron Dome, so they're expecting an attack.
Wow. Well, of course, we knew all this was coming. It's just a question of the timing as to when it was going to get here. But let's go on to Trump. It was said was really seriously thinking of approving the embassy move and making Jerusalem the capital of Israel. Well, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna add that we've known over the last few days that there's been some rumors coming out about this cropping back up again, because he mentioned that when he was running for president, and then he mentioned it when he was in Israel, and then he backed down. And matter of fact, this report that I found is from the Times of Israel. That's the news out of Israel itself. And here's the headline. It says, Israel expects Trump to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital city within days. Now, you as well as I know, Stuart, if that occurs, probably war is going to break out about that point in time.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no way that the Hezbollah and the rest of those guys are going to tolerate anything like that. So maybe this is all scripted, this is perfect. And then we have the rise of the Sanhedrin, and that's been kind of an interesting thing. Then we had the letters to Putin and Trump to let them up on the Temple Mount, I guess, and do what they do. So we've got to be, unless there's another hand up of the Lord, to be right at the edge. I mean, that's an amazing thing to have Trump do that. And they think it's going to be really soon?
Well,
I did not see that report.
Yeah, they're saying days, and matter of fact, it was in today's headlines. If you go to timesofisrael.com, you can read that for yourself. Yeah, that's their top headline, so they really believe it. Now, what's interesting, too, is the fact that we know that unprecedented dialogue is going on between Saudi Arabia and Israel at the present time, and not only is Putin linked in with Iran, but he's also linked in with this new Salman of Saudi Arabia. He's visited, and so there's more going on in the Middle East than we're aware of. And I've also shared with you and mentioned just vaguely the fact that we know there's a lot going on in Israel that can't be talked about, and at the same time, we're getting, not only through Richard Shaw, but we're getting reports from other people that there's a lot going on, I guess you could say, underground in Israel than we are aware of.
Oh, I'm sure. Even the Bible codes, when they were being released, were sort of pointing to the 2017-2018 pivot line, and we're fast approaching that in America with December coming up, and we already passed it as far as Israel seems to be concerned. So I think they're in 5778. And November 29th is the date when the UN, back in 1947, issued their mandate to go forth. And so this is when we come up to November 29th. We're here today. This is the anniversary, 70th. Yeah, this is the 70th year. So we're moving into that time period when the wars and whatnot appear to be coming right on schedule, I guess, is the only way you can word it. And the American people are sitting here, twiddling their thumbs, basically. I don't know if they realize how serious this can get overnight even. And Trump said, we're going to handle it. Yeah. Any word on how they're going to handle it, do you think? Have you heard anything at all?
No. I don't know any more than you do on that, how they're going to handle it. I'm still shocked that Tillerson is talking dialogue, because we're aware that doesn't work. But I'll tell you what, America is the most foolish nation on the planet. We're more worried about everybody's sex offenses, and our own media is covered with sex. I guess all the females in America need to move to the East Coast, and the men go to the West Coast and build a wall. And we're insane. We're just insane.
Well, that may be the ultimate goal. Remember, Bible prophecy says no more marriage. And, yeah. So maybe they'll arm all the women with AK-47s, and they'll arm the men with BB guns.
Yeah.
Seems like the men are being neutered anyway.
I'm like you, Stuart, though. I really do, even though that, I know people want to know about all the crimes people have done to women and men and et cetera, I still believe this is a smokescreen, just as you do.
I do. Yep, I think, and I also believe that North Korea is a trap, and we're falling into it. And Kimmy boy, who knows? Maybe it's the Illuminati out of London. They pick up the phone and say, "Hey, Kim, on December 2nd, launch another thing, but aim it at a country so that we get some results." I mean, you got to remember, people, that the Illuminati is absolutely ruthless, and they are getting more and more cold with this G5. I'll get into that maybe on Friday if we can do one on Friday. So, but this G5 is 5th generation of these smartphones, and they're wiring it all into a global brain, and everything will be run by computer. If the computer says we need to kill 20 million in this area of the world, they'll kill 20 million in that area. And it's going to be deadly, and you're not going to be able to move around at all. This G5 thing is really, really bad news for everybody. Geomagnetic storm predicted. NOAA forecast is estimated 55% chance of a G1 geomagnetic storm November 29th. So here we are. Maybe another kind of a warning. What do you think about that?
Well, it's very interesting, and maybe we can ask Stan Friday about the sun, because the sun is really throwing out these geomagnetic storms. They're almost daily now. It's just one after another, and it's not really CMEs. It's actually charged particles coming out of the atmosphere of the sun that is opened up. It's really bizarre right now.
Well, anybody that's, I guess we could use the word allergic to electromagnetic changes and those kind of cosmic particles is not going to feel well. And they're going to notice this more and more as we travel down towards the sun really going anomalous. It's already anomalous, but it's really going to go anomalous. And I don't know how you prepare for that, though, really. Is there any way they can prepare for that? I don't think so. We'll have to ask Stan.
Yeah, that would be something good to ask Stan. And I wanted to mention to you, by the way, that I was following some reports from Mitch Burtress the other day, and he said that we're in such a emergency with these incoming, I guess you could say, cosmic waves, that they're bringing with them a lot of radiation, and they're actually, these gravity waves, they're actually building devices now to send out for communities to monitor the radiation coming down on a daily basis.
Well, I think you're going to see airlines canceling their polar flights because of the radiation. In fact, they've issued special reports on it. But the average person, of course, doesn't know that any of that's coming. They don't pay any attention to it. They don't even look up to see the chemtrails overhead. And we were chemtrailed heavily today. Anything else you want to...
Yeah, I was just going to mention, we've been chemtrailed for days now. Just every day, just the whole sky. And they especially are covering the sun where it goes down, even though it's so bright. You can't look that way hardly.
Yeah, isn't it interesting how they chemtrail the sunrise and sunset?
Yeah.
But I really have not seen anything unusual. I know, what's his name, Marshall Masters, has been posting some pictures of some woman's been taking, but I have not seen anything by the sun. Not to say that it's not coming here, because it is. Anything else? We got a minute.
Well, I just, we just have to tell people this thing with North Korea is really serious, and, for people to just keep their families prepared. And as we approach Christmas now, there are some reports that this is going to maybe a bloody month coming up, and I don't mean to scare people, but just people need to be aware and be cautious.
Well, especially women need to be aware. Always around this time of year is when they kidnap women for their sacrifices on these high holy days that they have. And just be alert, really. Be alert. And don't do foolish things. Anyway, we thank everybody for listening, and thank you again, Larry, for coming on. And we'll see you Friday, hopefully, and we'll get into this a little bit more. Anyway, good night, everyone.